Hello and welcome to episode 189 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR, as always, joined by fellow co-founder Evan Silva. And today we are joined by a young man who leads one of the most absurd lives I am aware of. He's part couch surfer, part nomad, really just a fancy way of saying he's homeless, all while covering the NFL as well as anyone. It is, of course, Silva's roommate from the 2020 NFL season. It is Rotoworld. Yes, I still say Rotoworld. It is Rotoworld's John Daigle. John, how's it going, buddy?
Only took until episode 189 to snap the streak of the person who was mentioned on this podcast the most, yet hadn't appeared on this podcast yet.
You know, before we get to Evan, John, I got to ask you, man, I think the people want to know, what was it like living with Silva in his new estate? Like, I kind of picture it like, I don't know, you remember that movie from the 80s with Tom Selleck and Ted Danson, like Three Men and a Baby? I kind of picture it like that, but I think the people need to know what it was like living with Silva.
Believe it or not, we had only met one time before we decided to make this proposal. And I was only supposed to see him for a couple of days as I started the nomad trip, which we may talk about here in a minute. But then it became a week, and then it became 3 weeks. And eventually, I think after a month, I told him to mute the TV. And I said, hey, serious conversation here. What if I were to stick around for the football season? And he just looked at me and he said, Daigle, you're staying. And then he turned the volume up and that was it. And then literally 6 months later, I left because I don't do winters.
Yeah, it started to get real cold, man. It started to get real cold. Too much. And you missed the big snowstorm. I mean, there was like a 2 or 3 week snowstorm, which was just absolutely brutal. I mean, it was hard to even drive. But yeah, he jetted when it started. Daigle does not do the cold.
Man, this is such a crazy life, Daigle. I've heard of temporary couch surfing. I've never heard of permanent couch surfing before, but I don't know, man.
It's not permanent. It's more like indefinite couch surfing. There's going to come a time in life when I can't do this anymore. But what better way than when a pandemic starts? And Connecticut, for example, is on hard lockdown where I couldn't even go to the grocery store for a month. And then all of that starts taking a toll mentally. And I look up, still not in studios in Stanford, and I say, there's no point in staying here. You literally have to make a choice. And my choice was to move everything into a storage unit and then just take off around the country. I can't help that it ended up cooking for Silva. 3 meals, by the way. One for me, one for Silva, one for 2 a.m. when he wakes up.
Dude,
every night.
Don't blame the pandemic for this. I know you were doing this well before the pandemic because I've seen you just show up in Philly out of the stone blue. So don't tell me this was pandemic related. I
think I stayed with like Bales for 2 weeks during that time when everything was normal. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but if he had stayed in Stanford for that whole time, I mean, that would have been bad for mental, physical health. I mean, that would have been, and Ian Harditz had moved away, right? Yeah. I mean, he had moved to Ohio. I mean,
everyone there,
awful.
Josh Norris included, just like couldn't go out anyways. But like Josh never went out when it was normal anyhow. I dragged him out one time and working with him for 2 years. Everyone has kids and stuff to worry about, including y'all. Whereas, I'm me. So I go to the people. I'm a man of the people.
You just expose yourself as team no sex. I think that needs to we need to move on here. On today's show, we're going to talk about week 1 betting. Yes, that's right. Week 1. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Adam, it's way, way, way too early to do this. These games don't start for another 4 months. And I get it. I do. But I'd also say that over time, markets trend towards efficiency, which is just a fancy way of saying that the fresher a market is, or in this case, the fresher the lines are, the newer the lines are, the softer they will be. So yes, today we will be going game by game through week 1 and talking through some potential bets we may have. Before we get into it, I want to remind everyone of 3 things. First, our draft kit is live. It's $34.99, includes everything we think you will need to win your draft, whether it's best ball, dynasty, redraft, etc. Second, all subscribers to the draft kit get a free $10 credit on Underdog. For instructions on how to claim the $10, go to Silva's Top 150, see the editor's note at the top. And finally, I am excited, thrilled to announce that we have soft launched our subscriber only Discord. I actually think this is going to be really cool. And I used to make fun of Discord about Virgin and stuff like that. And I'm a stone boomer. I just didn't get it. It's actually really cool. I've gotten into it a bunch lately. And since we're only allowing subs into our Discord channel, I hope the conversation will be pretty high level. If you come in and start talking about religion or politics, we're giving you the stone boot. I mean, no questions asked. You're getting the stone boot. So to get into the Discord, go to the account tab. It's easiest from desktop. The account tab in the top right at establishedrun.com homepage, then click on the Discord tab, and there you'll find instructions. Okay. NFL schedule was released last week. Week 1 lines were up not long after that. The 2021 NFL season will start with Cowboys at Bucks on Thursday night. Bucks are 6.5. The total is 51.5. I do actually have a bet here that I like, but I'll throw it to Daigle first to see if we're on the same page. What are you thinking about Bucks 6.5, 51.5 here in week 1 to start the season, Daigle?
You have a bet on perhaps minus odds whenever you could just build like a Terraform and get that return quicker than 8 months later?
Excuse me?
Okay, well, can we start with Silva on this one, actually?
Okay. Silva, do you want to start off the NFL season? Bucks are 6.5, 51.5 against the Cowboys.
Because this is one where I do have a take. I mean, this is going to be Dak Prescott, and I love Dak Prescott. Oh, man, last year, Daigle and I were actually watching the game together where Dak Prescott just shredded his leg. And it was painful because I think we both had a lot of Cowboy stacks and best ball and, with our FFPC teams and all that. This is going to be his first game back from that injury. And I think the Bucs are a way better team than Dallas. I think that the Bucs are a good bet here to cover the 6.5. I think they can absolutely win by a touchdown, returning all 22 starters, getting the offseason that they didn't have last year. And they started slow. I mean, the Bucs started slow, at least offensively. Tom Brady, people were talking about how he was washed, the fourth down thing, people were, it's not hard to forget that people were gunning on Tom Brady for the majority of the first half of the season. They're not going to have to worry about that this year. I think they're going to start fast, and I think that they'll be able to score a lot of points against the Dallas defense, who I do think will be better. I think will be closer to mid-range across the NFL this year, but I think the Bucs are just a way better team. And what are we going to get? I mean, I think that Dak is probably going to come out a little tentative in his first game back from that catastrophic injury.
My favorite bet for this game is the one I would like to try and make with Silva right now, because when I look at the top 150 and I see Ezekiel Elliott at number 18 overall as the RB12, I'm appalled. Those that listen to a good football show know that I don't let a single take slide. Like, there has to be skin in the game for your opinion to be validated. So I would like to bet dinner right now, Silva. I'll lay the line that I believe Zeke is a top 8 running back, let's say.
You know what? I just finished the running back tiers article last night, and my top 150 is always very subject to change. It's a rough draft, the first one especially. Then I'll start drafting, and I'll build the tiers, and I'll do the team previews. And Zeke Elliott is now at RB7. So I can't, in good faith, make that bet. You should have caught me last week on that one.
For me, it's as simple as, one, people are saying Tony Pollard is an issue when Tony Pollard had one game inside the top 35 last year. And that was not coincidentally the one game Zeke missed for injury, which was the first game he missed for injury, by the way, since his first year at Ohio State. Averaged career low in rushing yards and fantasy points per game against the league's second toughest rushing schedule. But when Dak Prescott was healthy, averaged a career high 7.5 targets weekly. So I think people are not giving Elliott enough credit, who is currently my RB4 in best ball leagues, because the offensive situation is best for him among that top tier when we have questions for Alvin Kamara at quarterback, Saquon Barkley in the offense overall.
Okay. This is a betting show, Daigle. Do you have a betting take? Do you have a betting take on this game?
No, because...
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Can I give my take?
I would love to hear it.
Dallas is getting Dak Prescott back. They're getting 3-star offensive linemen back. They're returning arguably the NFL's best 3 wide receiver set. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay is returning everyone, adding O.J. Howard. I think that this game, 51.5, is just too low for these two offenses, which I expect to be two of the most efficient in the league in terms of yards per play. I think over 51.5. I think before this line closes, we could see 53, 54, even 54 and a half before this line closes here. This Dallas offense is going to be awesome. And I think the Bucs offense with Tom Brady is going to be extremely efficient. We already know this. They're so talented already. So I think over 51 and a half. And you guys know me. I'm not one to take overs at the rate like Evan Walters does over here, but I do think over here in this league opener makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, let's be clear. I don't just take overs. I hit overs. So.
Okay. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go to 49ers at Lions. 49ers are 7.5. Total here is 46. Obviously, we don't know who will be starting for San Francisco 49ers. I think if I had to bet right now, it would be Jimmy G, although I do think Trey Lance will end up starting by the time October is over, undoubtedly, if not the beginning of October. Daigle, any takes on this game here?
Trey Lance is plus 225 to be the week 1 starter at DraftKings Sportsbook. So clearly the underdog. I actually think for a home opener, this number is pretty good in favor of the Lions. I don't think they can win either, but I think they're going to keep it close enough to where they compete. And again, I don't know how they move the ball at all with Jared Goff and likely Jamal Williams playing over DeAndre Swift. But even if it's just Jimmy Garoppolo who's favored to be the week 1 starter, that's enough for me to say, okay, there's at least a pass rush in week 1 in Detroit. I like that number.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was talking with Connor Allen, who we're going to have the show on Thursday to talk about futures and win totals. And I was talking with him about the Lions recently, and he likes the under on them at I think 5 wins. And I did initially, and I think the more that I think about this, the less I like that. And we'll talk about more on Thursday, but I agree with your theme here that the Lions are going to be able to keep games close, and especially against Jimmy G, who I don't think he's very good. I think that if there's a bet here, it would be the Lions, but I think it's a pass.
Yeah, I didn't have a bet on this game either, but when you can say, hey, Detroit can win with offensive line, maybe they can win with defensive line, and so 7.5 at home is a lot. Let's go to Steelers at Bills. Bills are 6.5. Our Bills are 6.5. Total here is 50. I think the big question on this game is how done do you think Ben Roethlisberger is? Do you think he's only partially done? Do you think he's completely done? Do you think he's like totally inept, or do you think he'll bounce back and have a reasonable year? Daigle, anything on Pittsburgh at Buffalo?
Roethlisberger's done. 45.5 attempts per game over the second half of the season, and yet only walked away with 11 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, despite the team running the league's highest pass play rate in neutral game script in that time. I want to be ahead, and this starts in week 1. This is a betting show, of course, Levitan. I want to be ahead of the Steelers rebuilding, which I believe comes in 2022. I have issues with this offensive line as they plug in their 3rd-round rookie immediately at center and think they can just fix the running game with Najee Harris. And then also the defense that everyone continues touting as well will be without Mike Hilton and Steven Nelson. You just don't replace those guys off the free agent wire. Joe Hayden, 32 years old, on the final year of his contract. I genuinely think the castle is crumbling, and this is a year to be ahead of the Steelers and dodging them.
Yeah, I like that take. I mean, I don't see where the Steelers are better than the Bills in any aspect whatsoever. Maybe you can make an argument for defense and pass rush, but yeah, Evan, anything on Steelers at Bills?
Yeah, just Bills smash this while this is still at minus 107. I think that they're not, I mean, they're a clearly superior team to the Steelers. The Steelers down the stretch last year were a legitimately bad team. Yeah. They rely so much on their defense. They lost critical players on defense, as Daigle just mentioned. They also lost Bud Dupree. Didn't really do a whole lot to replace those guys. The offensive line is trash. That's actually maybe the area where the Bills get like a significant boost, because their defensive line isn't that great and usually not capable of taking advantage in that area. But I think that they're going to have their way with the Steelers offensive line. I think the Bills are an absolute smash at minus 6.5. And I think that this is going to go past the 7 by the time that we get to week 1.
Go ahead, Daigle.
It's just the Bills' continuity as well. Bringing back Dable is so important, but also all 5 starting offensive linemen.
Yeah, no, they're loaded up again. And this AFC is loaded too. We'll talk about Chiefs and Browns who are actually playing each other later on. One thing I would say, just from a macro betting perspective, these 6.5 lines, you're always going to show a little bit of value. Even if you think there's only a 20% chance the line goes to 7, it's still worth taking the 6.5. You can always come back and grab the 7 and grab a 7.5 and go for middle there. Even just blindly. Okay. Jaguars at Texans. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's situation is completely mired here. Jaguars are favored by 2.5 in Houston, 45.5. That suggests to me that everyone, the market, bettors, everybody assumes that this will be a Tyrod Taylor start for the Texans. Daigle, what do you think about Jaguars Texans?
I mean, the Texans, my God. It's funny because all the moves that Urban Meyer have made this offseason would suggest he's a stone donkey without having coached an NFL game yet. Mm-hmm. Having said that, Trevor Lawrence is literally going to cancel all of those decisions. It's going to be like Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, how he just drags a dead carcass to the postseason every single year, despite what the organization is trying to do around him. So I think Trevor Lawrence walks away successfully in this game. And I know this is not a future show, but I genuinely think there's favorable odds to betting the Jaguars to win the division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked about that one.
I put that in our text thread, and you just made fun of me, Daigle.
I have this. This is the issue with living with someone. You then have a tendency to combat everything they say as well, whether you believe it or not.
Right. No, but I agree on that. How embarrassing is it for the Texans that they are home dogs to the team that just had the number 1 overall pick in the draft?
Yeah.
I mean, and then they also have the oldest roster in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, this team is just like there are 31 teams, and then there's a gap, and then there's the Texans. It's that bad. They
made enough bad moves this offseason that trading a 6th rounder for Ryan Finley prior to that is completely forgotten. He couldn't cut it as the Bengals' 3rd string. They were going to release him, yet they traded a pick as a rebuilding organization for him.
Yeah. And then they traded up for, a wide receiver who's going to do nothing for that. I mean, I like Nico Collins fine, but I mean, what does he get? You think he's moving any needles over the next couple years? And then they wasted another pick on Davis Mills. I mean, they are so lost. I like the Jags. I mean, and I'm with Daigle on the long shot bid to win the division as well.
I'll say this. I know I just said that if you like the Bills to take the 6.5 because it can go higher, you want to get the 6.5. On this one, I think the line can only go the other way. The Jaguars are 2.5. I actually think that you run the risk of losing the line here in case Deshaun Watson's situation cleans up. Because let's be honest, if Deshaun Watson ends up playing week 1, which I don't think that he will, but if he does, this line is probably Texans -3. And so you open yourself up to something there if you think there's a chance Deshaun Watson plays in week 1.
That's fair. I mean, I would bet heavily against it, but we can't rule it out. We can't think that we're smarter than the probabilities here. I mean, there's still some level of probability that Deshaun Watson could start for them week 1.
No, there's still a chance for sure. Okay. I can't believe these two teams are playing, man. Two of my favorite teams. We've talked about the Chargers offensive line upgrades. We've talked about how much we like what the Chargers are doing with Justin Herbert. We've talked about the Washington football team, made them our team. I think the Washington football team will have one of the NFL's best defenses. And then they added Ryan Fitzpatrick. They added Curtis Samuel, who I like. I even like De'Ami Brown, who they added. I mean, I just like both these teams a ton. I'm actually pissed that they're playing each other. Chargers 1.5 on the road in Washington. Total is only 44.5. I think I have a bet here, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts first, Daigle.
The narrative will probably be that the Chargers have the edge, in particular at quarterback. And while that's true, it goes the same for Washington's division odds, which, again, not a future show, but that's incorrect too. Because Fitzpatrick, it's lazy to say that he's boom or bust, or he's not consistent, because he's not been that at all, actually. He's been a QB1 for fantasy, and I understand that's not the end-all be-all for how we analyze quarterbacks, but he's been a QB1 in 16 of his last 26 starts dating back to 2018, including 4 of his last 6 with Miami before he was benched for the blueprint, not for performance reasons. So I genuinely don't think this game will lead to fantasy success as much as we want it to. I think it's just a fun as hell X's and O's football game between two legitimately deep postseason contenders.
Yeah. I'll on the Ryan Fitzpatrick point, he's come out and said, obviously he's a really smart guy. You can't look at his cumulative stats because he's come out and said, hey, when we're down by 3 touchdowns, I don't care about turning the ball over. I will be boomer bust when we're down 3 touchdowns. But when we're winning and when we're close, he plays it tight to the vest. He plays like a normal quarterback, you know? So like all this stuff needs to be taken within context. Evan, my bet on this game is going to be on the Washington football team. I think we consistently see the Chargers on paper defense look better than their actual performances. And I don't know if that'll be the case this year, but I want to lean towards Washington so much this year. I already have over 8 wins, already have them to win the NFC East, and I'll go ahead and stack it up here and go ahead and grab the +1.5 on them in week 1, 2. Obviously, I don't love it betting against Herbert, and this really improved offensive line for the Chargers scares me some. What do you think about that in this game?
I have this as a pass. What do you think that the chances, though, are that Justin Herbert takes a step back this year? Because I mean, I've been, you know, I like the Chargers at 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. I even took, you know, Herbert as like a correlation to win MVP along with that at like 20-1. But what if we're overlooking the possibility that he has something of a sophomore slump? He is changing OCs to Joe Lombardi. Joe Lombardi, when he was OC in Detroit, was not very successful. They pretty much ran him out of town there. I don't know. I don't want to see. I mean, after what we saw from Justin Herbert, I was so impressed with him as a rookie. I don't think it's likely, but what are the possibilities that does happen?
The playbook transition is the only one that throws me off because the coaching obviously better. Moving on from Anthony Lynn immediately makes Herbert that much stronger of an option. And then also the offensive line. You're kicking Trey Pipkins to the bench. You're throwing Rashawn Slater at left tackle. Balaga hopefully healthy as a staple right tackle. Corey Linsley in free agency, PFF's #1 run blocking center last year. Getting Matt Fielder as well to throw in on the interior. So overall, the situation has gotten already so much better for Herbert. It would just be the playbook.
Yeah. Totally agree there. I mean, offensive line, coaching, and obviously I like their weapons too. You know, Keenan Allen was banged up for a lot of last year. Eckler too. He's getting both those guys back. I'd be surprised if Justin Herbert took a step back for sure. Let's move to the Sam Darnold Bowl. Jets at Panthers. I mean, I know I'm on the record, and maybe I'll regret saying this. I'm on the record saying that I think that the Jets fans are going to be upset when Sam Darnold plays not great, but reasonably well for the Panthers. And I think the odds makers and the market agrees a little bit. Panthers 4.5 here. Total is only 43. I mean, 43 is very, very low for an NFL game these days. Daigle, go ahead and start us off on the Darnold Bowl.
I'm actually passing on a bet here, but I will say the Panthers lucked out in knowing exactly what they're going to get from Darnold in the first month of the season because they got fortunate enough to open in this game against the Jets, against the Saints at home, and then traveling to Houston and Dallas, which don't matter defensively at all. So within a month, we're going to know how this offense fares. And given the schedule, the fact that Joe Brady already schemed and coordinated a career high in passing yard for Teddy Bridgewater last year against what was the league's toughest passing schedule, that's why I think Sam Darnold could be so successful in this offense.
Yeah. And Silva, go ahead. I do have a bet here, but Silva, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the bet is actually the over. And not that I think that this is going to be a shootout necessarily, but you know, you saw the way that Zach Wilson played at BYU, very, very aggressive, throwing the ball downfield. Sam Darnold, I mean, you know, not only is he probably going to throw the ball to the other team a couple times, which we know from a fantasy perspective is not always the worst thing. He's going to be surrounded by Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, and you know, Christian McCaffrey is going to be back, and he's going to be playing under Joe Brady, Mike LaFleur on the other side. Just big upgrades going from, in terms of going from Adam Gase, like, you know, on both sides, really. Sam Darnold getting away from Adam Gase and the Jets moving away from Adam Gase. So 43 points, that is nothing in today's NFL, even for inexperienced / struggling quarterbacks. We can't get a 24-20 game. Absolutely we can. I think we could get, 28-23 or something like that. I mean, I think that all that is in play. So I really like the over here, over 43.
Yep. I had over 43 as my bet in this game as well. I think underrated supporting cast for both Zach Wilson and Darnold. I mean, gosh, with Christian McCaffrey healthy and they add Terrace Marshall as well. I mean, Panthers supporting cast is loaded. Great scheme. I think that Joe Brady will bring. And then I'm optimistic about what the Jets can actually do on offense. I thought they had a really good draft, and they're going to make things happen that I think is not reflected in the market just yet. Eagles at Falcons. Falcons are 3.5, 47.5. We don't know if Julio Jones will be on the Falcons in this game. I think Silva's pretty convinced that Julio will be on the Falcons come week 1. I'm still a little bit 50-50 on it, but either way, I think people are going to be excited about this game for DFS, naked Jalen Hurts stuff. Hurts with some of these cheaper guys. I think they'll come in on DraftKings for sure. And always the Falcons you can stack very, very well. But anyways, for betting, Daigle, do you have anything on Eagles at Falcons?
Nothing more than what you said, honestly. Jalen Hurts naked, running it back with whomever's left on the Falcons. That just fine. Not Kyle Pitts. I'd probably be out even in week 1 in DFS. He's probably going to be highly priced. What I will quickly say, though, according to the Falcons' schedule, not to make Silva burn his MVP tickets already, but the Falcons actually have to play an extra road game. So that means they already have 9 road games, but then also the Jets game in week 5 in London is a home game. So they have 10 road games. They have an early bye in week 6 and then return with 7 road games after that early bye. So I'm actually fairly worried about the Falcons' second half, even though they'll probably be strong talking points on networks in the first half.
Silva, anything on Eagles Falcons?
Yeah, I don't like some of the negativity about the Falcons schedule, but even though it is warranted. But I mean, that just goes to show they're going to really need to pull out games like this. I like the over on 47.5. I absolutely think that the Eagles are going to be capable of moving the ball, especially on the ground against Atlanta. I think the Eagles can have a dominant running game this year with a dynamic dual threat quarterback and a bunch of dudes that can play in the backfield and an offensive line that's getting back studs and added another stud. I think a ready to play stud in Landon Dickerson. And then the Falcons, I wouldn't say that I'm convinced that Julio is coming back. I'm hopeful that Julio is coming back and largely optimistic about that. I think that we can absolutely get over 47.5 here. I think that by the time we get to week 1, I expect this to be closer to 49 or 50.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I actually had this game as a pass, but I could definitely see the total creeping up here as Falcons games are wont to do. Okay, this next game, Seattle at Colts. This was the one line where I was like, I don't understand whatsoever. I mean, I was just like floored. Colts are 2.5. The total is 52. 52, Daigle, for Seahawks at Colts. Last year in neutral situation pace, Colts were 18th. Seattle was 22nd. And that was with Pete Carroll being pissed off about them throwing the ball too much. We know that the Colts want to establish the run. Also, they're going to be breaking in Carson Wentz and trying to get him high percentage stuff. I don't see how this game is 52 and some of these others are down there in the 40s. I have a ton of respect for the NFL market. Like, I never ever think that I'm beating sides and totals at any rate whatsoever. So I'm convinced that I'm missing something here, but I would have guessed 46, 46.5, 47, 52 absolutely floored me. I don't know, Daigle. Am I missing something here on Seahawks at Colts?
The Colts also had a left tackle who's not coming off a torn ACL last year at this time too. So that's another negative. I will say the Colts defense is not one I'm worried about. I genuinely think they whiffed completely in the draft. They needed immediate answers in their front 7 after losing Justin Houston, Danico Autry in free agency. And yet they answered with Kwity Paye, undersized, registered just 11.5 sacks in 38 games in the Big Ten. And Ode Odengbo is coming off an Achilles tear from January. So who knows how these players will perform and offer a pass rush for Seattle offense that's probably going to be even more tepid this year. They fired their OC because he was passing too much. Chris Carson, of course, when he came back from injury, handled 71% of the team's backfield touches. So that's where I look in a slower paced game along with you. Yeah.
Evan, am I crazy here? I know you don't like to take unders, buddy, but this one is screaming.
I mean, you can bet the under. I'm not going to discourage you from betting it, but I just like Seahawks money line plus 116. I think they're the better team. I don't know what we're going to get from Carson Wentz. I think he's a truly boomer bust proposition this year. You've got the concern at left tackle. I mean, it's going to be Sam Tevy at left tackle in week 1. There's no way that the old Eric Fisher is going to be ready for week 1.
Right.
I don't know about the Colts defense. Seattle has been really good about starting hot. in recent seasons and then sort of fading down the stretch. Plus 116 money line. Give me the Seahawks all day.
Okay. This line surprised me a little bit. Vikings at Bengals. Vikings are actually favored by 3.5 in Cincy. Total is 48. And I actually like the Vikings. If you go back and listen to the futures and win total pod we did a month ago, we talked a lot about Vikings, overs, Vikings to win, division, et cetera, et cetera. But 3.5 on the road against Joe Burrow and what I think will be a very, very good offense surprised me a little bit. I would have guessed something closer to a pick. Doesn't mean that I really have a bet on this game, but clearly the market is respecting the Vikings, or maybe they're just disrespecting the Bengals as people have been doing for so long. What do you think about Vikings, Bengals, Daigle?
We've all done this too long. The moment I saw this, I knew this was the leverage game of the week for DFS. Dalvin Cook, obviously going to be the most roster player in cash games. So what do? You run it back with a double stack with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen. That's simple. And then you bring it back with Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, sprinkle it throughout your lineups. It's so easy. The Vikings did not address the defensive issues at all. They signed Patrick Peterson, who was a below league average player last year and was practically only good when he was on PEDs. Great. So I'm just going to be continuing to attack the Vikings defense every single week.
Yeah. I do think the Vikings defense will play better than they did last year. Like, they can't be worse. And Mike Zimmer, I think, will make them play better despite talent deficiencies. Evan, what do you think about Vikings Bengals?
Don't have a real strong take on this, but I'm still on the Vikings win total over. We'll talk about that more on Thursday with Connor.
Yeah, and also glowing reports on Joe Burrow, by the way. I mean, I fully expect Joe Burrow to be fully healthy for this week 1 game against the Vikings. Cardinals at Titans. Titans are 2.5. 51.5 is the total here. These Titans games often had really big totals last year just based on raw efficiency. Even when they were handing the ball to Derrick Henry 20, 25, 30 times a game, they're so efficient that the totals still get up there. What do you think about Cardinals Titans, Daigle?
Since it's a Titans defense that lacks any amount of star power, I'm excited for the return of the Cardinals offense. Maybe not the one we completely trust, but at least we know deliver for fantasy. Kyler Murray averaged 29 fantasy points per game and 6 design runs prior to crunching his throwing shoulder against the Seahawks in week 11. And then after that, averaged just 18.5 fantasy points. So I think we get Kyler Murray back at full health. I know we get him back at full health. And it's the one we actually trusted last year to spend over in DFS salaries.
Mm-hmm. Silva, anything on Cardinals at Titans?
Yeah, probably over. Looking at over 51.5. Daigle makes a good point about the Cardinals, about Kyler Murray coming back healthy. I love the addition of Rodney Hudson on the interior. I mean, that's going to make I think it's going to make a big difference for their offensive line. Christian Kirk in the slot, Rondell Moore. I think they're going to involve Chase Edmonds a lot more. I know that there's some skepticism about Chase Edmonds. I get it, but I think that he's going to have a bigger role. They've told us that he will, and it makes sense for them too. And then the Titans, they rebuilt their secondary, and they still, I mean, their pass defense, like combination from the fact that their pass rush is lacking and their secondary is still a huge question mark. I mean, I think that teams are going to be able to unload on that, and they're going to have to answer back. And I think that they will be able to answer back. I think that Ryan Tannehill is taking big steps forward. A.J. Brown is going to have an absolute monster year. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 overall. I mean, I think he's going to be that. And then hopefully they can keep enough positive game script here for Derrick Henry to be able to get his 20-plus touches. But I think that both of these teams are going to have offensive success in this game.
I don't have a bet on this game. I would lean – I wish I could get to 3, though. I would lean towards Cardinals. I think there's just so many more questions on the Titans side. They lose Arthur Smith, and they lose so many pieces on offense, Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. And so I think that as much as I hate to bet on the fake sharp Cliff Kingsbury, if I could get a 3 here, I'd be interested in the Cardinals, I think. All right. This next game is, I mean, I don't even know where to go with this game. Packers at Saints, because we have no idea who's starting for the Saints, and we have no idea if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. So the easy thing to do is just say, hey, I'm going to let this play out. I don't know what I'm going to do. There's no total up on DK right now. The line they have up is Saints minus 2.5. My guess right now is that it will be Jameis Winston starting against, I want to say Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know, man. I honestly don't know what's going to happen with that situation. Daigle, do you have any leans on what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? And if so, or if you don't, how are you going to play this game?
I've seen some books actually open at Packers plus 2.5, and maybe they've been pulled since then. But even if it's Jordan Love, that's the wrong number. The Packers are the better team all around, have so much more depth than the Saints. I'm team salary cap doesn't matter, and yet the salary cap actually matter for the Saints' depth this year. So I don't know why they drew 5 primetime games. It's going to be like the Bears last year, how every time we looked up and had to vomit because we couldn't believe they were in front of our television so much. So yeah, I just think the Packers are the better team. They're an easy pick.
Yeah, I don't think that if Jordan Love starts, I actually think that Saints should be at least -3, maybe -4. I have no confidence in Jordan Love whatsoever. But yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, Silva.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. I guess I would sort of disagree that the Packers roster is that much better than the Saints. I think the Saints have a better O-line and maybe a little bit better defense. No, I'd say they have a better defense than the Packers. But in terms of like receiver core, I think they're about even. And then I think the edge would go to Jameis/Taysom if it were versus Jordan Love. It's a pass for me though. I don't have anything strong here.
You're actually just getting to hear our petty battles from the text threads, Adam, right now. This is all we do all day is correcting each other.
The thing is, I don't want to hear about the football battles. I want to hear about like who didn't clean up their dishes and shit like that. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear about
that was always me.
He knows. He knows.
All right. Broncos at Giants. I think this is an interesting game. Broncos are actually favored by 1.5. And I don't know if there's some Aaron Rodgers stuff baked into this or not, but Broncos are 1.5. Total is only 42.5. This one surprised me, Daigle. I actually thought that the Giants have done enough improvements to be at least at home slightly favored. I know I'm like on Giants Island. I know everybody hates the Giants. Everybody hates Daniel Jones. If Jason Garrett wasn't there, I'd feel really good about Giants plus 1.5. But anyways, go ahead, Daigle.
Pass for me, just because I dislike both of these organizations and don't like how they built their team. I will say, though, for best ball teams, however you want to phrase this, the Broncos are actually projected with the league's second easiest schedule of opposing pass defenses, whereas the top 5, the others, the Bucks, the Browns, the Dolphins, etc., are actually being drafted inside the top 5 of their position in those deep FFPC leagues, whereas the Broncos are the defense 14 overall right now. So for fantasy leagues, I just kind of look to the Broncos defense, and that's about it.
Yeah. Silva, anything on Broncos at Giants?
Well, I kind of like the Broncos here. I obviously would much rather have them be playing at home. Their home game track record within like the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season has been almost impeccable for a long time. But here they are going to MetLife. The thing is that I think that they can cover 1.5 even if they don't have Aaron Rodgers. And then this is like an easy one, a gift if they do get Aaron Rodgers, which I don't know. I think there's still like a 30 to 40% chance that they could. So I like the Broncos minus 1.5 because I think that they can get this done whether or not they get Aaron Rodgers. And if they do get Aaron Rodgers, then they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet it yet, but I would have leaned the other way. I would lean towards the Giants. I don't think people are giving the Giants enough respect for getting Kenny Golladay, for getting Saquon back, for making improvements along linebacker and cornerback. I mean, I think that they have done things to improve the team. And as much as we bang on Dave Gettleman, I thought he's at least done okay. Obviously, I didn't like the Kadarius Toney pick, but.
So then when the Broncos get Aaron Rodgers, you just hold the bag, right?
Yeah, that's why I said I'm not going to bet it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, not a bet yet. Okay. Browns at Chiefs. I don't have a bet on this game, but man, this is an awesome game. Really, I mean, maybe the 2 best teams in the NFL you can make a case for between the Chiefs and the Browns. Chiefs are 5.5, 52.5. Should be a really, really good game. As I mentioned, Daigle, anything here?
I can already foresee myself doing skinny stacks in this game in DFS, just because recall this is the divisional round recap, and the Browns struggled in the first half, barely put up any points in the Chiefs, and I would not expect that to happen again. The Browns actually have the fourth easiest rushing schedule this year as well. So although this is probably the worst take I'll have, long shot Nick Chubb MVP odds, because boomers hate Baker Mayfield, who averaged a career low in pass attempts per game last year. Chubb is going to stack the stats. And so Chubb, and then of course Tyreek Hill, my wide receiver 1 overall, not AJ Brown, since he averaged 10.7 targets per game in his last 11 starts last year, seems like the way to go, as well as the over.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb as a somewhat timeshare back would be an upset to be the NFL's MVP, but go ahead, Silva.
You just got to run for 2,000 and rush for 20, and then you still won't get it.
What's the price on that, Daigle?
Oh, I don't even know. I was looking at PointsBet. I don't think it's up, actually. Like I said, long shot. And okay. I have heard Baker Mayfield takes from this podcast. And those are wrong.
I mean,
bad takes.
Okay. I mean, it can't be wrong yet.
It's like when you order a drink at a restaurant and then pour water into it, and I always get mad about it. And then you call it double drink. That's wrong. That's not how it works. Not how life works.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is all priced appropriately. Browns, Chiefs. Yeah, I think it's all priced right.
Yeah. Okay. Dolphins at Patriots. I mean, you guys know me. I have been lower than market on the Patriots for the last year plus. It was a printing press last year, just being on Bills to win the division and betting against the Patriots every week. Cam with the COVID fog, blah, blah, blah. Patriots still, though, no respect for the Miami Dolphins. All the respect, as always, for Bill Belichick. I mean, can you imagine if they didn't have Bill Belichick? This line would be like Dolphins -7 or something. Instead, it's Patriots -2 because, everybody's got to love Bill Belichick's there. They're favored against anybody. And I respect Bill Belichick. I do. It's going to be a lot to overcome from a talent perspective. I think Miami wins this game, even though the Patriots are a 2-point favorite. Total is 45.5. So I'll just continue my practice of fading the Patriots every single week. Oh, but wait. They added Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. Stop the presses. They added Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. They're going to be fine now.
No one is saying that. I mean, what a straw man. What a straw man there.
Go ahead, Daigle.
Every time the schedule release comes out, I always look for two things. One, hoping the Cowboys don't play the Giants on Sunday night. I'm so beaten down by that game. And two, hoping the Dolphins don't play the Patriots in week 1. And yet they did this shit again. So I pass. I do not care. I will say Tua and the Dolphins have the league's 4th easiest passing schedule projected for this year. And people are far too low still in best ball on Tua, considering they built the entire offense around him to make life easier. It's almost as if he played as an injured rookie who didn't receive offseason reps last year. Go figure. So I am still higher on Tua in the passing offense.
No, I love that take, and I'm totally with Daigle with everything you just said about Tua. That I love the way the Dolphins built around him. I've talked about him as a long shot MVP bet at 66-1, as the Dolphins as a long shot Super Bowl bet, or at least to win the division at plus 333. So yeah, I'm good with that. I don't think I'm going to bet on this particular game, but I do like the Dolphins takes.
God, you guys are crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. Dolphins are so much better. It's not even funny. Okay. Bears at Rams. Rams, the new look Rams with Matthew Stafford are -7. 45 is the total. We don't know who will be starting for the Bears. I guess I would project Andy Dalton, but again, I don't think that Fields will be on the bench for very long. It's just the Bears are such donkeys. I mean, I could see them definitely starting Dalton in this game for the reasons that Evan talked about last time. Oh, this defense, Aaron Donald's going to throw Justin Fields around. We can't let him get out there and get beat up in week 1. So I would project Dalton for this game. But either way, I think the line kind of middles it a little bit. Rams -7, 45. Daigle, anything on this game?
One, the Patriots won 7 games with the quarterback who threw for 8 touchdowns. So calm down. The Dolphins aren't that much better. Two, This is when the Rams' potential MVP campaigns begin because Cam Akers has been blessed with the league's easiest rushing schedule, and Matthew Stafford just upgrading over Jared Goff and away from the Detroit's offense. They're going to use every centimeter of the field and exploit opposing defenses. It could be career years for Cooper Kupp, who has never really had a quarterback to throw downfield to him from the slot, and then Robert Woods has been used as a possession receiver underneath. So I'm looking forward to watching the Rams offense no matter what happens with the Bears under center. But clearly, unless they are just sacrificing Andy Dalton's soul to get eaten alive by Aaron Donald, Justin Fields has to be on the field to win this game.
Yeah, agreed. I'm excited to watch the Rams also. I don't know if I'm on board with all these running back to win MVP takes. Like these boomer writers only vote for quarterbacks.
Just one take.
You had Cam Akers to win MVP and Nick Chubb.
No, easiest rushing schedule. Easiest rushing schedule does not mean MVP. Matthew Stafford's the MVP, but his numbers are priced out because even sportsbooks see him as an MVP candidate.
Got it. Okay. I thought you were calling Cam Akers MVP. Okay.
I will in 50 years when I'm strictly a journalist. Then I'll get these boomer running back takes going.
Okay. Silva, go ahead on Bears at Rams.
I just think it's lined appropriately right now. I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for the Bears. The assumption of rational coaching, they need to get Justin Fields out there playing. I mean, this dude, they didn't just draft him and then he woke up and they asked him to play quarterback. Like, he's been playing quarterback for his entire life. He's played at nearly the highest level of college football. Like, get him out there, get him playing. But I'm with you. I mean, the Bears are donkeys enough to talk themselves into thinking that sitting him for whatever reason is a good idea. I mean, they did that. They trotted out Mike Glennon Mike the Goose Glennon, for a couple weeks back in the day, and they could do the same thing with Andy Dalton.
It's so funny because as much as they got right in trading up for Justin Fields, like they just remind us that a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again, and they just are going to throw out Andy Dalton. It's so stupid.
All right. Last game here, boys. I believe this is the Monday night game. And even though I won't be on the East Coast anymore at this point, they're doing the East Coast dads. Shout out to JJ Zacharyson, giving the East Coast dads a favor here. Only one Monday night game in week one. It is Ravens at the Las Vegas Raiders. Ravens are 4.5. Total is 51.5. I do have a take here, but I'm curious to hear you guys go first. Daigle, go ahead.
Levitan, speaking of Colorado, it's funny that I started with you. You didn't start at this point, but I met you at Labs initially in its startup year as we were the only two people running NFL news that season. And now here we are in 2021 and you have $1 billion homecoming in Colorado while I'm still writing news for RIP Rotoworld. So fun times. Living life on the road as a homeless person. This is the Gus Edwards showdown captain game, by the way. Baltimore 10-3 in their season openers under John Harbaugh. And as Sharp Football's Rich Rebar tweeted out, past 5 week 1 games won by a combined score of 177-26. The best part is when you think the trouncing is over for the John Gruden regime and the Raiders this year, they actually drew the league's toughest schedule based on Vegas's season win totals. So this game is going to tell you whether or not you should trade immediately Josh Jacobs, because there may never be a favorable game script for him. This could be the second half Kenyon Drake game.
Mm-hmm. Evan, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how the Ravens are only favored by 4.5. Like, every explanation for this, I assume, will be like about the crowd and Vegas, and like no actual analysis about how these teams match up, because the Ravens are going to absolutely smash them. Yep. Probably like 40-17. I mean, this is going to get ugly. You got to get your bets in right now, I think, on the Ravens. I think it's a ridiculous line. There
was no pandemic in Vegas, so it doesn't matter. It's just another day there when they open the stadium.
Yeah. The bet I had on this game was Ravens minus 4.5. Also, I mean, forget about home field advantage. They're putting a club in the stadium. A club, and these guys aren't going to watch the game. They're going to be on the team.
It's gonna be sick.
Someone loop that, Luke, and just play it over and over again.
I mean, dude, a club in a football stadium, it's all gone too far. Nobody's gonna be watching the game. They're gonna be trying to get on the team. They don't care about what's going on out there on the field. And so, yeah, I think Ravens minus 4.5 for sure. And also, yeah, I mean, I've been thinking more and more about Silva's Lamar QB1 take, and I definitely like it plenty. I'm in this eliminator draft where you can take any position. It's super flex and take any position. I actually took Lamar Jackson 3rd overall, which I think raised some eyebrows, but I think I like it in that format where you can start as many quarterbacks as you want. Anyways, I digress. We've said it all. We've said it all about games that are happening 4 months from now. We've said it all, though, so that you can get in nice and early. I think this was good. It was fun. We are far from professional bettors. Obviously, fantasy is what we do, but I do think that there's overlap there, and I think that hopefully this is fun and interesting to people as well. Let us know. You can actually leave comments on iTunes, and we'll definitely see them there if you guys want us to do more betting type shows like this. Daigle, tell the people, because I know you're homeless right now, so tell the people where they can find you so that you can get a roof over your head finally, where they can find you on social, et cetera, et cetera.
You can Venmo me rent at not J Daigle on Twitter. And then go check out RIP Rotoworld, NBC Sports Edge for all of my content. Load a good football show as well on iTunes and Spotify. This has been fun, by the way. I feel like there's so much more takes and so much more to talk about, but we're going to need a long form podcast to do so whenever Levitan lives his dream and becomes Howard Stern 20 years down the road.
Yeah. By the way, are the NBC Sports people, am I going to get a call from our old friends? They'd be like, you call it NBC Sports. Stop calling it Rotoworld. You call it NBC Sports. Am I going to get a call from like Ed or something like that?
I mean, if you don't, I'm about to, so.
Oh boy. All right. We will be back on Thursday with Connor Allen to talk updated win totals. Now that the schedule is out, the draft is over, to talk about some new futures markets that are up, such as Coach of the Year. We'll be back for Evan Walters to put his hat on for that. For Daigle. For producer Luke. For Evan. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.